Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ.
And I'm Jeanelle Slade. Another step forward for a proposed and controversial gravel pit project in Billings.
Now this morning it was standing room only as the Yellowstone County Commissioners unanimously approved that project.
Now since it was first announced, the project has sparked outrage from many residents in that area.
Q2's Samantha Sullivan has more.
Well, Russ and Jeanelle, the county commissioners unanimously approved the project, allowing First Mark Construction to move forward with their plans for the gravel pit near Oscars Park. Commissioner John Ostlund says despite concerns from residents, they could not prohibit First Mark from using that unzoned land for the project.
On unzoned property, there are a lot of things that are allowed, and gravel mining is one of those things. And as both our legal team and planning staff have said, we don't have the ability to regulate that. That's regulated through the Department of Environmental Quality.
Now the project will have to get more approvals from the DEQ before moving forward. Since the announcement of the project, residents have protested, citing concerns about traffic, flooding, groundwater, and a decrease in property values. In their decision, the commissioners attempted to address some of those issues with conditions to the approval, including a mandated route for all trucks to alleviate those traffic concerns. But despite some of those conditions, many residents are still concerned.
It's going to be scarred for generations. There's no timeline. They say 10 to 15 years, but it's going to be more like 30 to 40 years. When you look at Billings, that's that last piece of property that we could all take a breath and look at and go, you know what? Let's do the right thing.
First Mark Business Development Manager Ed Walker has said the project is expected to last 10 to 15 years, and then the company plans to restore the land to include a lake for the owners of Oscars Park to develop. Russ and Jeanelle.
All right, thanks so much, Sammy.
The newest grocery store to hit Billings has set its eyes on an opening date of early March.
And Winco Food says the store at 24th and Central is right on track. Now, the company is looking to employ 160 full and part-time employees, and we're told there's a steady stream of applicants lining up for positions. Billings is not the only Winco coming to Montana. A store in Helena will also open in March.
Bozeman is currently on track to have a store as well, but there is no firm timeline for that location.
This latest cold snap, being called Polar Vortex Jaden, is also putting a freeze on mail delivery in parts of Montana. Take a look. Tomorrow, mail delivery and collection will be suspended throughout the eastern part of the state. A representative for the U.S. Postal Service could not tell Q2 an exact range on cities affected. If you'd like to check on your area, there's a link with service alerts in this story at ktvq.com. Wind chills across the region could reach as low as 40 degrees below zero.
Cleanup crews are on the scene of a train derailment between Bozeman and Livingston. This all happening around 1 o'clock this afternoon. Montana Rail Link says coal was spilled because of the derailment. The train was not carrying any hazardous materials. No word yet on what caused the derailment. There were no injuries, and we'll have more information on this just as soon as it becomes available.
A Roberts man arrested today after he crashed a pickup truck into the Carbon County Courthouse building. Take a look at this video posted on the county Facebook page. No one was injured, but Tig DeVries faces a charge of felony endangerment and was taken to the Yellowstone County Detention Facility. The crash happened just after noon in the building that houses the courts and the sheriff's office in Red Lodge. The sheriff says authorities believe DeVries was targeting county offices.
A bill that would make it illegal for doctors to help patients take their own life had its first hearing at the state capitol today. House Bill 284 would open doctors up to possible homicide charges if they were to comply with patients' wishes and speed up a patient's death by prescribing a lethal dose of medication. Assisted suicide is not explicitly legal in Montana, but a ruling in the 2009 Montana Supreme Court case Baxter versus Montana created what some call a loophole that allows the practice. The bill's sponsor, Republican Carl Glimm of Kyla, says it sends the wrong message to people about suicide as a solution.
Every session, this body takes up legislation and spending bills to try and curb the suicide frequency in our veterans, our youth, and our Native American populations. This bill is an opportunity to send a consistent message about suicide from young to old, from healthy to sick, that it's not a good option.
Well, some of those who spoke in opposition to that bill see things differently. Roberta King is the daughter of Robert Baxter, the plaintiff in the Montana Supreme Court case that allowed physician-assisted suicide. She testified at today's hearing saying the choice should be left to the patient, not the government.
People in Montana believe that we know how to take care of ourselves without government interference. We trust that our doctors will give us the best possible medical advice, and the Montana Supreme Court was right to agree.
A similar bill to outlaw physician-assisted suicide failed in Montana during the 2017 legislature.
Two Montana men who spent years in prison for crimes they did not commit appeared at the state legislature today. They spoke in favor of two bills which they say would either prevent false convictions or make it clear how wrongful convictions can be overturned. But law enforcement officials turned out in full force to oppose both measures. Senate Bill 172 from Billings Democrat Margie McDonald clarifies legal standards on new evidence. Prosecutors oppose it, saying it's too lax and would require them to hold on to huge volumes of evidence indefinitely. Senate Bill 156 from Billings Republican Roger Webb would require more vetting of criminals who've been promised favors to testify against someone. Law enforcement officers lined up to oppose the bill, saying it will destroy their ability to use confidential informants. Richard Burkhart of Great Falls and Cody Marble of Missoula, both exonerated within the past 2 years, spoke for Senate Bill 156. They say incentivized witnesses led to their convictions.
You're sitting in jail, you know you're guilty, you did something, maybe you're going to prison for 10 years and you have somebody come along and say, well, if you say this or do that, we'll give you less time. If this law was in place, I feel like there's a much better chance that what happened to me would not have happened.
And the Senate Judiciary Committee will vote later on each of those bills.
The state of Wyoming's legislature is considering moving away from daylight saving time, but there is a stipulation. The bill would need 3 adjoining states to also opt into daylight saving in order for it to move forward. Republican Representative Dan Larson says the bill would send a message to the federal government that states should decide whether to adopt daylight saving. Wyoming would be in the central time zone but would have standard time all year long. Monday, the measure passed the Wyoming House. That change would take place immediately once it's passed all legislative hurdles.
Well, Metro Park is getting ready for a night of classic rock and roll. Doors open at 6 tonight for the rescheduled Bob Seger concert.
Yeah, you might remember Seger was supposed to play here in Billings back in 2017, but he suffered a ruptured disc and he had to reschedule. Kicked off his new tour last fall and he's been going strong since. Zoe Zandor is at the Metro now as that area preps for the big night. Zoe?
That's right, Russ and Jeanelle. I'm standing here at the steps of Metro Park, anxiously waiting to rock out to Bob Seger, as you said, who rescheduled from his show back in 2017. I was told nearly 9,000 people are supposed to attend. Ray Massey, the director of sales and marketing, told me it's the 3rd largest show to ever come through Metro Park in its history. He also told me that there are more tickets after the band was done setting up. There was more room. They said, hey, let's sell more tickets. You can go online, you can come here to the box office, grab your ticket to rock out to Bob Seger tonight, and I can't wait to get inside. Russ and Jeanelle?
All right, thank you, Zoe.
Zoe says, anticipating the large turnout, Metro Park encourages guests to arrive early to allow time for security procedures. The concert begins at 7:30 with the record company opening.
All right, coming up on tonight's 5:30 News, measles has hit the state of Washington. Now, medical professionals in Montana are on high alert. That story next.
And in sports, this heavyweight wrestler from Glendive is Q2's Athlete of the Week, recovering from a lung infection just in time for state.
And coming up in weather, we're going to compare some of the temperatures and wind chills in Billings to those of North Dakota and Minnesota. And the differences, I'm here to tell you, are quite chilling.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.